The rain poured that night, like it was trying to wash away my disappointment. The sound of thunder outside mixed with the faint chatter of people in the small Italian restaurant where I sat, staring blankly at the half-empty glass of wine in front of me. My date had left 15 minutes ago, abruptly, without much explanation, except for a tired sigh and a mumbled, "I just don't think this will work." Then she walked out. I didn't stop her. I didn't even have the strength to pretend it didn't hurt. If you've ever felt that slow, sinking ache of realizing someone just doesn't see you the way you hoped, you know exactly what I mean. It's like you can feel yourself fading into the background of their story while still stuck in the spotlight of your own. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the strange beauty of unexpected connections, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel, because this story is about how a single sentence from a stranger changed the entire course of my life. Her name was Allie, though I didn't know it then. All I knew that night was that she was the waitress who kept my glass filled and my heart somewhat steady. I remember her quiet presence, a soft voice, a patient smile, and the way her brown hair fell loosely over her shoulder as she leaned in to ask if I wanted dessert. I think she noticed before anyone else did that I wasn't doing okay. When my date was still there, she noticed the way the woman across from me kept checking her phone, way I laughed too softly at her half-hearted jokes, and how I stared into my drink a little too long. Emily didn't say anything. She just kept appearing at the right moments, as if she could sense the awkward silence growing between us. When the breakup moment finally came, if you could even call it that, Emily was the only one who noticed me just sitting there after, motionless. The restaurant was warm and smelled like garlic and basil, but I felt cold, hollowed out by the embarrassment of being left behind. I must have sat there for almost an hour, pretending to check my messages, pretending to be okay. The truth was, I wasn't. My last relationship had ended painfully 6 months earlier, and this date was supposed to be my fresh start. But now, it felt like the world had just confirmed what I feared most, that maybe I wasn't meant to be loved again. And then, as I was about to leave, Emily came over one last time. She cleared the empty glass and gave me a small, knowing look. The kind that doesn't need words to say. I saw what happened. I smiled awkwardly, trying to hide my pain behind politeness. But as I stood up to go, she leaned closer, just enough for her voice to reach me over the hum of the restaurant, and whispered I would have stayed. Those 4 words hit me harder than anything my date had said all night. For a moment I just stood there, frozen. I turned slightly, but she had already walked away, moving toward another table with that same calm, steady grace. I left the restaurant that night with the sound of rain in my ears, and her words echoing in my mind. I would have stayed. It was such a simple thing to say, yet it carried something I hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Someone saw me, not as a failure of a date, but as a person who still deserved to be cared about. Over the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about her. Maybe it was foolish, maybe it was desperate, but I found myself going back to that restaurant again. At first, I told myself it was just because I liked their food. But deep down, I knew why. When I walked in again 3 days later, she was there. Same soft smile, same calm energy. She recognized me immediately. Her eyes lit up, and she said, "Back again?" In that teasing, gentle tone. I smiled back, awkward as ever, and said, "Yeah, figured I'd give the lasagna another chance." She laughed, and that sound, light and real, made the place feel less like a restaurant, and more like somewhere safe. Over the next few weeks, something unexpected started to happen. Each time I came back, Emily and I talked a little more. At first, it was just casual, favorite movies, bad jokes about customers, random observations about life. But slowly, our conversations began to deepen. She told me she was studying art at the community college nearby, that she worked nights to help pay her tuition, and that she'd always dreamed of opening a small art cafe someday. A place filled with color, music, and kindness. And I told her things I hadn't told anyone in years. About my failed relationship, about how I used to write music, but gave it up after heartbreak stole my inspiration. She listened, really listened, like every word mattered. One evening, I brought her a small sketchbook I'd found in a drawer at home. It was old, with a cracked cover filled with half-finished lyrics and random doodles from years ago. "I used to write songs," I said quietly, sliding it across the table after closing hours. She opened it gently, turning the pages as if they were fragile memories. "You should start again," she said softly. "Sometimes art is the only way to stitch up the places people can't reach." Her words didn't just comfort me. They challenged me. That night, for the first time in years, I picked up my guitar. Weeks turned into months, and what started as casual visits turned into something neither of us could fully explain. I wasn't sure what we were. Friends, maybe more, but every conversation with her felt like a step out of the shadows I'd been living in. We began to meet outside of the restaurant too. She'd invite me to small local art shows. I'd play her a new song I'd written, inspired by her laughter. Slowly, my world began to change color again. But life, as it often does, had its own way of testing things. One evening, after a long day, I stopped by the restaurant only to find out from another waiter that Emily wasn't there. She'd quit the previous week. No one knew exactly why, something about her needing to move forward. It hit me like a gut punch. I hadn't seen her for a few days, but I thought it was just her schedule. I left my number with the staff, hoping she might reach out, but days passed in silence. Then, one night, I received a text. It was her. "Hey, I'm sorry I disappeared. Can we talk?" We met at a small park near the river, under a street lamp that flickered softly against the water. She looked different that night. More tired, but still carrying that quiet light in her eyes. She told me her mother had fallen ill in another city, and she had to move back home temporarily to take care of her. "I didn't want to leave without saying goodbye," she said, "but I also didn't want to make it harder for you." I understood, but I couldn't hide the hurt. "You were the only one who stayed when everyone else left," I said, my voice breaking a little. "You can't just vanish." She looked at me for a long moment, then stepped closer and said something I'll never forget. "Sometimes we leave not because we stop caring, but because we hope you'll keep growing, even without us there." We stood there in silence, the wind carrying our unspoken words. When she hugged me goodbye, it felt like something beautiful ending before it had the chance to begin. Months passed again. I went back to focusing on my work, my music, my life. But her presence never really left me. I started performing at small cafes, writing songs inspired by real people, real pain, real hope. And every time I played, I remembered that night. I would have stayed. 1 year later, my small open mic performance got recorded by someone and went viral online. The song was called Stayed. It wasn't fancy, just me and my guitar, but people said it made them cry, reminded them of kindness, and the strangers who save us without knowing it. The song reached millions, but I only cared if it reached one person. And then, one afternoon, as I was finishing soundcheck for another small show, I saw her, standing near the back of the room, holding a cup of coffee, eyes glistening. Emily. When the show ended, she walked up to me, her voice trembling. "You kept growing," she said softly, echoing her old words. I smiled, blinking back tears. Because someone once told me to. That night, we sat outside the venue, laughing like no time had passed. She told me her mom was doing better, that she'd come back to the city, and that she'd finally started working on her art cafe dream. And then she said something that made my chest ache in the best way possible. "I heard your song before I even knew it was you." I cried, because I realized you did stay in the music, in the kindness, in everything you touched. We didn't need labels or promises. We just needed to sit there, knowing that somehow our broken pieces had found their way to each other. Sometimes love doesn't arrive in grand gestures or perfect timing. Sometimes it begins in the quiet kindness of a stranger who chooses to see you when no one else does. If this story touched your heart, if you believe that a single act of kindness can change someone's life, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It helps these real and emotional stories reach more people who might need hope tonight. Before you go, comment below with, "I believe in second chances." Because sometimes that's all any of us really need. And maybe, just maybe, someone out there will whisper the same words that changed my life forever. I would have stayed.